patterns in nature. There is one pattern in nature that I don't know why it doesn't show up more in the literature, but it's a pattern we see over and over. And it is a sinusoidal pattern. There are other patterns in nature, in particular, a sine pattern. Yeah, you're like, what does sinusoidal mean? That's right. It was a flying beach, let's say, water lizard. I don't know. It's not. Dinosaur lizard. Yeah, it was like a platypus with wings, basically. No, the sinusoidal pattern. That's right. I may be mispronouncing that word. Am I sinusoidal? Sinusoidal. Really? All right. Well, now we've all learned a brand new word, sinusoidal. Your homework assignment is to throw that into conversation at some point. That's right. They're going to go, is that a dinosaur? And you're going to feel weird. All right. So for example, we find daily patterns, right? So the course of your day varies where you're really wide awake, really asleep, lethargic, and then we start it all over again. That pattern actually has a name. What's the name of that daily pattern? Circadian rhythm. Is that a dinosaur? Yes. Wait, is that an insect? That's right. Circadian rhythm. So we find a circadian rhythm in our body temperature, various hormone secretions, and our awakeness. That follows a sinusoidal pattern. The menstrual cycle follows a monthly pattern. The hormone levels follow a monthly pattern. Go up, drop down, go up, drop down, go up, drop down. They technically don't go below zero, but they go below a baseline level. What about yearly patterns? Are there any yearly patterns? What? No. There are some. The height of the sun in the sky, the length of the days. Many other animals show yearly patterns of mating. That's a sinusoidal pattern. And we might ask, are there any monthly patterns other than the menstrual cycle? I bet y'all show monthly patterns, or it may not be monthly, y'all might show bi-weekly patterns.
Whenever you get paid.
Whenever you get paid, right? So I might argue that your willingness to spend follows a sinusoidal pattern. Here's payday. Woohoo! Let's go out, party! Oh, I am broke. I gotta stay home. Can't do anything. And then it repeats itself, you know. I certainly tell you my likelihood of going to Walmart is a sinusoidal pattern. You know, I'll go to Walmart to do that one shop, and then I'm like, I'm going to Publix instead. All right, let's look at some of these. So these are very useful patterns. So for example, we can use the circadian rhythm, the daily pattern, to predict the likelihood of accidents. And so with this one, the actual circadian rhythm pattern is sort of the exact opposite of this. So the circadian rhythm is dipping at this point, then going up. But what you find is the likelihood of having an accident is sort of the flip of your circadian rhythm. You're more likely to have accidents, no surprise, when you're tired. This is actually useful too, because you actually find an increase in accidents in the spring when we set our clocks forward, because people lose an hour of sleep. There's actually a peak in accidents at that time too. Free information, you don't have to pay extra for that. Monthly patterns of the menstrual cycle. That is a very common one. And we're going to do gender for about 3 weeks in this course. But many people wonder whether or not there's a monthly pattern related to the female menstrual cycle in their interest in sex. If you take my PY 108 class, we discussed that. And if you were just guessing, you don't know anything about the pattern at this point, but if you were guessing, when do you think people argue that it peaks? So we have a sine wave pattern like that. Do you think it peaks? Let's see, this is ovulation, or that's going to be A. Do you think it peaks around menstruation? Actually, those are two big variables. When do you think researchers believe that it peaks? A, ovulation, or B, menstruation? I don't know. You have a clicker.
I didn't know you were doing clickers.
Yes, when I said A.
Oh.
That was your first clue. Make sure it's on this time. You know, all right.
I'm having a hard day.
I know. Let's see what y'all's intuitive guess on this one is. You'll think, and actually some researchers have found that coital rates, I don't know why I'm being so coy with my words, coital just means sex. They found those rates increase throughout the early part of the menstrual cycle, which is called the follicular period, and they peak whenever a hormone called luteinizing hormone gets released, which is just before ovulation. What? The luteal phase? Yeah, that moment. And then, do you remember what the third one is?
Wait.
No, not the luteal phase. Not the luteal phase. You have the follicular phase. You have ovulation. The luteal phase is the last 14 days. Remember? Yeah, because it gets its name from the corpus luteum. Yeah. People went away. Human sexuality. Let's see. Some people have wondered whether or not there is a seasonality to human sexuality. This is sort of a weird question. For example, Hesiod. If you're in my learning class, you just heard about my good buddy Hesiod. He thought that women were lascivious in the summer. But men's strength means sexual. And I only mention this for two reasons. One, because I think it's an interesting question whether or not there's a seasonality to these kind of things. But also, it lets me talk about perhaps one of the most disgusting experiments I've ever read about. I'm so glad I get to have this on tape. These researchers wanted to know if there was a seasonality to sex. And so what they did is they went through sewers, I'm not making this up, and counted the number of condoms they found.
You can just ask people? Yeah.
Jesus. Why would you ask them when you can go sewer hopping for condoms?
That just seems a little...
Yeah, you don't know a good time. And they did find one. It's not the most major sinusoidal pattern, but they did find one. Okay.
Not everyone flushes them down.
Yeah, okay, there's a lot of problems with this study. Actually, when I read it, I went, there's so many problems with this study, you could have avoided this whole thing by not doing this.
You might authorize that. It's okay. Go ahead.
I don't
They got paid. Someone paid them.
I know, someone's like, hey, I'm curious. It's a weird study. All right, so you're thinking, okay, I don't want to go sewage hopping for condoms. There is one other study that I've seen related to this question, and they looked at this is true, the traffic to porn sites. And what they found is a sinusoidal pattern. Here's the sine wave pattern, and here, back on top of it in light gray, is visiting porn sites. And you find, for some reason, there is in fact a sinusoidal pattern in visiting of porn sites. I have no idea why this might be the case. What happens around this time of the year that people are like, hey, I need to go visit porn sites. Make sure I give it correctly. Yes, it peaks somewhere in the winter time, which is sort of ironic because it's the flip of this cycle. So maybe it's either you're visiting porn or you're flushing condoms down the toilet. It's a very weird study to do. There are other sinusoidal patterns that we see. Paychecks, I think it's a great one. What are some weekly sinusoidal patterns that you might see? Newspaper? Okay, yeah, if you're getting the Sunday paper, I was thinking more like, okay, it's Thursday, Friday.
Weekend.
Yeah, so if we were to sort of map, if we were like, what is your likelihood of going out to dinner? Do you think that follows a sinusoidal pattern?
No.
Yeah. When you get
I
paid.
don't know. I don't know. It's an empirical question. The question would be like, well, if we were to map days of the week on top of this, do you think it would go, I don't know, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday? I don't know. I I don't know if it would look like that or not. It's an empirical question. If people are more likely to go out to eat on the weekends. Is there any other sinusoidal patterns? Now that y'all know that fancy word. Paychecks, good one. With paychecks, we might go the likelihood of spending money on a sinusoidal pattern. I'm trying to think of other ones.
Taxes. We get taxes.
Well, it seems that's probably more of a.
That's a year.
That's my sign. So that's a sinusoidal than a one day I have to do my taxes. I don't know. It's something worth thinking about. How much of your. But here's the broader reasons I give this is if I know this pattern exists.
He's got one.
What?
Working out.
It's okay. What? Give me your sinusoidal pattern.
Weekly, I mean, yes, you would work out. Depending on your schedules, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Really? I mean, it's an empirical. I mean, it's an empirical question.
I think that'd be more of like a yearly thing.
Yeah, or a semesterly thing. I mean, I don't. It's an empirical question. We could obviously go over to the gym across the street, and they would probably tell us if there is that kind of pattern. But I mean, I would not be surprised to find there is a semesterly pattern. That at the beginning of the semester, everybody's hogging the machines that I need.
After New Year's, like New Year's resolution.
Yeah, it's like, woohoo, this all going okay. Or how full the parking lot is follows a sinusoidal pattern.
Could be the semester.
Or you could actually do that. What about studying? Does studying follow a sinusoidal pattern? The likelihood of studying? Like, oh, it's test time. Oh, I studied a lot. Oh, it's 3 weeks till the next test.
Yeah.
That probably follows a sinusoidal pattern. I mean, these are all empirical questions. What?
I said my studying looks more like the
Tax
tax
one.
Make sure you give him a special quiz. Every day. All right, on Friday, we're going to look at some drawbacks to naturally occurring situations and how to get around those. These notes, all the notes at this point are online. These notes will be placed there this evening or tomorrow, and I will see you all Friday.